Picking parts for a build is where most people quietly get lost. There's thousands of motors, hundreds of frames, KV numbers, prop pitches, cell counts, and no obvious way to tell what goes with that. So people copy a part list off the internet and hope it works, and not really understand what they bought. Let's fix that. And rather than just talk theory at you, we're going to spec a real one as we go. A 5-inch freestyle quad that can carry a GoPro. Every part in order, and I'll tell you exactly why I picked it. By the end, you'll be able to look at any build and know why those parts are together and spec your own with confidence. One idea underneath everything. Every choice narrows the next one. How you want to fly decides what size you're building. Size points you at a frame. Size and cell count decide your motor. Then a stack, the video system, receiver, and last of all, props. Notice where we're starting, because this is the bit people get backwards. It's not a part, it's a question about you. Getting that first answer right, and everything after it gets easier. Get it wrong, and you'll build a lovely quad that's no fun to fly, which is a much more expensive mistake than picking the wrong motor. Number 1, start with how you want to fly. Before you look at a single part, answer this. What do you actually want to do with it? Because that decides your size, and the size decides nearly everything else. Freestyle is the flexible one. Anything from a whoop in your lounge room up to a 7-inch will do it. Most people land on a 5-inch, but the style itself doesn't lock you into a size. Racing is more specific because the class picks the quad, not you. 3-inch, 5-inch, 7-inch, and X-class, or even a spec league where everyone's on the same parts and it all comes down to you, the pilot. So find out what you're actually racing before you buy anything. Cinematic is usually a 5-inch, 7-inch, or a 10-inch. And here's the bit people miss. Cinematic blends into long range more than you'd think. Getting the shot often means getting to a top of a mountain, somewhere where you can't drive to, somewhere that's a bit inaccessible. So you're often speccing both at once. And long range is 7-inch and up. Basically always. Bigger props, more efficiency, longer flight time. That's the whole trade. So pick your answer now, because the rest of this video assumes you've got one. If it's more than one, and honestly, for a lot of people it is, build for the one that you use the most and accept the compromises on the other. Now here's the build. For ours, I want a freestyle drone, and I want a drone that can carry a GoPro, because I want footage worth keeping. That's a 5-inch. Big enough to lift the GoPro and not care, small enough to still be fun, and cheap enough to crash. Everything from here follows those two answers. Now the frame. You know your size. That narrows 1,000 frames down to a short list. And here's the honest bit about how you choose from that short list. It's not really about engineering decision at this point. Within a size, most decent frames fly pretty similarly. So people choose on a design feature, or how it takes a camera, or how easy it is to work on, or how easy it is to switch the arms out when you break them. Or let's be real, because it looks cool. That's a completely legitimate reason, and everyone pretends otherwise. It's the part you look at every day and swear at every time you rebuild it. So like the thing. One choice worth knowing about. X-frame versus dead cat. An X-frame is a standard. 4 arms in an equal X. A dead cat sweeps the front arms forward and out to keep the props out of your camera's view. If you're shooting and the prop in the corner of your shot drives you mad, this is what dead cat is for. If you don't mind a bit of prop, and plenty of people genuinely don't, X is simpler and there's more of it. The one thing your frame decides for you is your prop diameter. A 5-inch frame takes a 5-inch prop, and a 7 takes a 7. Hold on to that number, because it comes back when we pick motors, and right at the end. I'm going for the Flyfish Volator 2 VX5. It carries a GoPro, which is one of my 2 requirements, and it's durable, which for a freestyle quad matters more than almost anything else. It is an X-frame, so yes, I will be seeing a bit of the prop in the footage, but I'm fine with that. That's the trade I'm choosing, and it's worth saying out loud that it is a trade. Battery next, and specifically the S number, your cell count. That's your voltage, and your motor choice hangs off it, so it has to come before the motor. The little stuff, whoops and micros, run 1 to 3S. 3-inch to 5-inch runs 4 to 6S. 5 and up to 10-inch are generally 6S these days. 5-inch in particular has largely moved to 6S, so most kits are built around it. Then capacity, the milliamp number. That's the one trade-off rather than a rule. More capacity means more flight time, but more weight. And past that point, the extra weight cancels out the extra flight time. For this 5-inch quad, we are going 6S. For capacity, the usual answer is around 1300 to 1500 milliamp hour, but we're going 1400. A 1300's lovely and light, but I'm carrying a GoPro, and a 1500 gets heavy. 1400 is in the middle, and it's genuinely an underrated pack size. So you get the capacity without paying much for it in weight. Now the motor. 2 numbers, and you've already got everything you need to work both out. First, size. On a 5-inch, you'll mainly see 2 sizes, 2207 and 2306. Those numbers describe the stator, the guts of the motor. The first 2 digits are how wide the motor is, and the last 2, how tall. So a 2207 is narrower and taller, and a 2306 is wider and shorter. Same idea, different shape. Here's what the shape actually does. Being wider, the 2306 has more leverage on the bell, so it spools up and slows down a bit quicker. That's low end torque, and it shows up as throttle resolution down on the bottom half of the stick. It's also slightly lighter, and it cools a bit better, which is why 2306 tends to suit lighter quads. The 2207 goes the other way, narrower but taller, and it actually packs a fraction more stator in there. So there's a touch more outright power on tap. It's the more consistent of the two and has become standard for 5-inch motors. If you haven't got a specific reason to go the other way, this is the one to go with. And honestly, they're closer than the internet would have you believe. A good 2207 and a good 2306 motor will both fly brilliantly, and the brand and the build quality matters more than the 4 digits on the box. Then there's KV. This is where people freeze up, and honestly, it's the easiest rule in the build. KV is motor speed per volt. High KV spins a prop faster, low KV spins it slower with more torque. The rule that ties it together: small props want high KV and big props want a low KV. And you already know your prop diameter from the frame and your voltage from the battery, so your motor just falls out of these 2 answers. On a 5-inch on 6S, you're looking at 1700 to 2000 kV, and the split inside the range is worth knowing. A 1700 and an 1850 is your cruise and your light freestyle, smoother, more relaxed flying, and your 1850 to 2000 is where you start to get a bit more explodey, and that's your S-bang, throw it at everything sort of thing. Same frame, same pack, completely different quad from just one number. And the thing not to do, put a high KV motor on a big prop and it'll try to spin more than it can handle, draw huge current and cook itself. That's overpropping. And it's the #1 way people burn motors. The Axis flying AE227 in the 1960 kV version. So a 2207 and up the top of the range kV, because I want torque and power to throw a 5-inch around with a GoPro bolted onto it. That extra weight has to be moved, and a 1960 kV will move it. And here's a number that will matter in a second. On a high pitch prop, a 5140-66, this motor pulls about 36 amps flat. Remember 36, it's about to pick our stack. The stack is your flight controller and your ESC. And nobody's ever excited to talk about a stack, but get it wrong and nothing else matters. First, it has to physically fit. That's a mounting pattern. 30x30 is the standard. That's what most builds run. 20x20 is what you go down to when weight genuinely matters. Not just because the drone's a bit smaller. And when you're properly small, that's where a 25x25 all-in-one comes in. Flight controller and ESC fused into one board. Our recommendation is simple. Use a larger stack your frame can take. If it fits both a 20x20 and a 30x30, go 30x30. That said, both sizes perform pretty well these days. So if you've already got one in a drawer, it's not the end of the world. Second, the ESC has to be rated for what you're asking of it. No guessing. The manufacturer publishes test data for the motor. It'll tell you exactly what the motor pulls and on a given prop at full throttle. Here's a graph of the Axis flying motor we just picked. Find your prop, read the amps, and buy an ESC comfortably above that number. An ESC running right at its limit is an ESC that will let out smoke on your first proper punch out. Beyond fit and amps, it's features. Receiver built in, black box for tuning, that sort of thing. Nice to have, but not a make or break. The SpeedyBee F405 V5. It's a 30x30 stack, which is what the Volatile wants. And it's got the amps for a 36 amp motor, with headroom to spare. But the reason I keep coming back to these, Bluetooth. Bluetooth to the flight controller from your phone. So you can change settings at the field without a laptop. It's solid, reliable, and it's genuinely the boring choice in the best possible way. Now, how you see out of it. Analog or digital, and which kind of digital. This is a whole video on its own, and we've made it, so I'm not going to relegate a lot here. What matters at this stage is it just has to fit. The size and weight are real constraints. A Whoop can take a big digital air unit. It hasn't got the room or the lift. A 7-inch will carry anything you bolt onto it and not notice. Between those two, it's just a judgment call about weight against picture. And the smaller you go, the more the call matters. It's a very annoying thing to discover later. The DJI O4 Pro. It's a brilliant system. It fits this frame very well, and the volatile protects it properly in the metal cage, which on a freestyle quad that's going to get crashed a lot is exactly what we want. We're already carrying a GoPro for the real footage, but the O4 Pro means what I'm looking at is what I'm recording. The receiver is how your radio talks to the quad. This used to be a whole debate. It isn't anymore. ELRS is the standard, it's cheap, the range is ridiculous, the latency is tiny, and near enough everything supports it. Unless you've already got a radio committed to something else, this is a closed and non-decision. That's a good thing. Not every choice in a build needs to be interesting. The Radiomaster RP1. ELRS, bog standard, does the job. Moving on. Props last. Not because they don't matter, they're one of the biggest levers you've got, but because this is one part of the build where I genuinely can't tell you the right answer. Your diameter is already locked. Your frame did that. So what is left is pitch. And pitch is like gearing. Lower pitch gives you more control. Smoother and more predictable. Easier on the motors, and that's what you want for a racing, for a cinematic, and for a long range quad. Higher pitch gives you more punch and more aggression. And that's your freestyle, more send it, S-bang sort of flying. It also pulls more current and takes a lot more heat, so it isn't free. But here's the part nobody will tell you. Props are a personal preference. Two pilots on identical quads will run different props and are both right. There's no spec sheet that tells you which one you like. So do what everyone who's good at this stuff actually does. Buy 5 to 10 different sets, they're the cheapest part of the whole build, and fly them. The same quad, same day, back to back. You feel the difference immediately. And after a few packs, you start to understand the characteristics rather than just the numbers. That's how you find your prop for that quad. Not from a video, not from a forum, from flying them. Personally, I've been liking the Ethics, peanut butter and jelly props. These are 5130 props. It's the predictability I'm after. And I'll be honest with you, something a bit more aggressive, higher up in the 30s for pitch, would work really well on this quad, and I'd happily fly it. There isn't one answer, and there's one that I've landed on, and it might be yours too. So this is what we've got. A drone that can handle just about anything, carrying a GoPro, with plenty of headroom to test parts and experiment with. Solid, durable, and reliable. And not one part got picked because someone on a forum said so. Every single part came from the answer before it. And the whole thing started with one question. How do I want to fly? And that's the skill. You're not memorizing a parts list, you're following the chain. Once it clicks, you can spec anything, any size, any style. So there's the framework. Start with how you want to fly, that gives you the size. The size gives you a frame gives you your prop, your cell count next, then your motors fall out of the prop size and voltage, stack, video, receiver, and then go on to find the prop you'd like to fly. If you want a hand speccing out yours, drop in the comments or send us a message and we'll help you out by sending you a matched list. No copy paste parts list, actual reasoning. And if you're already flying, tell us your current setup in the comments. Size, cells, KV, and why you chose it. Catch you at the field.